Welcome back to episode 3 of Class and Jules. Just finished up pool play for the PLL Championship Series. Jules, excited to have you back. Excited to get going on our third podcast.
Yes, sir. I'm excited to be back, and the Woods are rolling right now, so I'm pretty fired up. I know Chaos is struggling a little bit right now, so I'll kind of let you talk a little bit about what's going on with them, with their offense, and what you're seeing, what you think can kind of improve, and then I'll kind of talk a little bit about the Redwoods. I think we're gaining some momentum on the offense, and it's something we talked about last time that I was hopeful for, and it's exciting to see, and then we'll kind of continue from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the beauty of this tournament setup is that everyone's got new life, right? 2 weeks together now from training camp now on to 4 games, right? A lot of film, a lot of feedback, chance to work together with guys. I'm excited for our guys getting a second matchup with Chrome. I think Chrome is a great team, great all around. They've got a lot of veteran leadership and guys that have played together for a while. That's well documented. A couple of guys that I used to play with in college. But I'm excited for our guys as well because I think Blaze Reardon's been playing phenomenal in the cage. I think we've got great players all over the field and just need to keep working together. I mean, I think the biggest thing, that I see, especially on offense, is just, continuing to draw attack on one side and then flip fields and attack on the backside. I think, what was really nice to see was a really nice Fricaro sweep over the top, kicks it to Burn on the wing, and then fires that reverse skip pass through to Salcido in the Water Dogs game. And I think those are the type of goals that the guys on our team are capable of. And so, I'm just hopeful for guys to continue to, keep working together, keep growing in these next couple of days. And you kind of put together, the product that I think, guys really know that we can deliver. So I'm excited to watch. And like I said, it's just, having more of that underdog mentality and coming in and just looking to, fight and compete. And I think you got players all over the field to do it, and you're playing against a tough Chrome team. There's nothing to lose.
Totally. And I think you bring up an interesting point in terms of, kind of how this tournament format is really set up. You look at last season, there were so many close games, and, I think you see a team like Chrome, how they've kind of come out this year and come out on the other side. I don't think we had that ability as teams in this tournament to really see, development kind of over the course of the season. It's kind of been more so, get right into it. And then whatever you got, team like your Chaos team, there's a lot of new faces. Everyone, is trying to find a role right now. I think definitely with, the offense not being as powerful as it was last year, quote unquote, in terms of productivity. But this is a league right now where if those guys can kind of just start to click a little bit more, if Fricaro can just have that, a game like he had last year, like any of the big games he had, and just kind of take another step, a guy like that, or a guy like Fields, who like maybe production wise isn't doing his best right now in these first 3 or 4 games, by game 5, with how this shakes out, like that could just take a huge turn. And I think that's something people, in terms of watching, don't really take into account, is the new faces, the chemistry, the ability to really gel and find roles with new teammates. And I think people are really asleep if they think that any team's going to go into that one and done, and it just be like they're going to roll over and fold. I think you'll definitely see some upset where there's some teams that were maybe 2-2, 3-1, whatever it is, just drop one, and then they're done, they're out. And that's kind of just how this is set up. So I'm curious to see how that kind of shakes out, and I would not be shocked if the Chaos team started to click really offensively in a way that you guys were last year come that time.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm excited for our guys. And I think the other thing too is, speaking back to last year's format to this shortened format, is think about, 4 games, 4 losses. That's over a month-long period, right? So think about all the time in between each game that you have to kind of keep gelling, reassessing, reevaluating, things like that. And obviously that's been packed in, to 8 days or so. So, I'm just excited for our guys to keep working through that and just come out firing. It'll be exciting. It'll be a great game. I think there's going to be some added, little chip on the shoulder and revenge, based on what happened with, some media instances last time during the game. So, you can't take that stuff lightly as well. So, I'm just excited. Hopefully we get Jared rocking in transition a little bit, get the guys running up and down. But, what I've loved too is seeing how Mark and Pat Resch especially have gotten out for some transition with Blaze throwing nice outlet passes and stuff like that. So, I think we're able to string a couple goals together and get on some runs. So if we can get some of that going, keep penalties to a minimum, keep playing smart team ball all over the field. We're going to be in every game. So I'm excited for our guys.
For sure. And that kind of leads me into, the Redwoods. I know we talked earlier and we were struggling a little bit on offense, kind of trying to find our identity. Obviously Miles comes into play and he's a new face in the offense in the midfield. He's obviously a dynamic ball carrier. So I think it's always interesting to see kind of how the new dominant ball carrier shakes out within an offense, or someone that can, dominate the ball a little bit more. And I think you're starting to see him get a little bit more comfortable. And then, for us, I think about it, there's just always been so much adversity on the Redwoods. And I think that's kind of a staple and really part of our culture and who we are, is kind of responding to that adversity. Obviously Garrett Epple getting suspended. Right now we're dealing with a couple injuries. Matt Cavanaugh wasn't in last game. And then you see we're still able to kind of come out on top and be at 2-2, where we know the beginning where we kind of were with that 0-2 backs against the wall, Epple's out this game, and we kind of pull one out, and then we're able to kind of get another one. And now you're in a position where you're really starting to flow and build momentum. And I think that's great heading into kind of a one and done situation, which was similar to what we had last year, kind of how our season shaped out. And, for me, watching the offense develop, I think it's something where, Perk and Miles are starting to really develop the chemistry. And I think Perk's really kind of come into his own this year in terms of being confident with his 2-bomb shooting. I think last year is something we saw pick up at the end of the season, and it was a huge help for us. And I think that's underestimated, where if you have someone that can consistently hit 2 bombs, Jared Newman, for example, last year, there's just games where it's like, if Jared Newman hits 2 of those, like, it's just like, what can you do about that? Right. And if Perk is hitting 2 bombs and then Miles hits 1, that's 6 goals right there. And like that, not that those are easy takes for those guys, but if we can get them open, right, with some movement off ball, or us kind of creating up top and then getting them the ball open and they can hit those, like, that's hard to stop. And I think that's why you see a team like the Whipsnakes with Chaney, like that's a benefit that you can have that really separates you. And I think that's what we're seeing from the Redwoods, which is a big difference from last year. We think we're the worst 2-bomb shooting team in the league. And I think, as far as the attack goes, I think you're starting to see Ryder start to, come into his own a little bit more. Maybe he didn't have as much as a productive start as he did last year. But, then again, I'm not there. Cav is beat up. Maybe it's putting more pressure on him as the ball carrier. So he's just kind of coming to his own as a leader. And that's what it takes, right? He's starting to find his feet and really start to step up a little bit and find that confidence, find that swagger again. And I think you're just going to see that continue to grow and grow. And then hopefully, this first game we can get through that and get the W, and then continue to grow on that.
Yeah, for sure. I think you bring up a couple great points. I think even, with Ryder, when you have some of those, changes back on that line, I think that even speaks to, as you get more and more games under your belt, with some changes, learning how to really be opportunistic with the takes that you have versus, always feeling like you got to go, right? Like I loved when he really recognized, demanded the ball against the Richards matchup, right? And then that second time around was able to turn that corner with confidence, kind of looking like that typical backhand goal that you get with Ryder coming around the cage. So I think that'll be, exciting to see develop, for him. And then speaking about the, Miles and Perk, I think that's where, especially with that last game, getting that on the scout, getting that on the tape, guys are going to be so much more aggressive to get out to that shot because, of that consistency, right? Like what is Perk, shooting 6 for what from 2, like 50% maybe?
Yeah.
And so what I'd love to even see in his game continue to develop is that little hitch series off of that to even then attack and get his big body going downhill and draw some extra slides or just even get some tighter. So it'll be interesting to see him play off of his 2-point ability to get some even higher percentage ones. But like you said, when you're already getting those at the rate that he's getting them, they're great shots for the team. And Joe Keegan put up a great stat about the efficiency of the shooting. I thought too, that was probably the first time his 2-point or second 2-pointer, I think it was second, or maybe it was the first one against Atlas, where he actually, extended his hands for a little more of a sidearm bouncer. Everything's always, true overhand for him. So that was interesting to see him develop that release point a little bit and change it up. because I think the way it kicked off the turf was really tough to read. I know, Coach Spencer Ford, I played for a couple years. I can't remember who, someone back, I think it was Kyle Dixon, always talking about Kyle Dixon's ability to, kind of shoot this like sidearm skip bouncer. And it's really tough for goalies to pick up. And that's why when everyone's talking about these bounce shots, like that's really the technique to it. If it's not the true overhand, is kind of like this like little sidearm skip where it kind of kicks off the turf, and it's tough for goalies to read that little side to side action.
Yeah, I think with Perk last year, he was kind of, finding his feet a little bit more and finding his, how he could get those two bombs off. We saw it in transition a lot, but I think the consistency of it this year is really, what's kind of allowing him to take that next step in terms of being an efficient shooter. I think, his 2-point shot's so different than a lot of guys. Like, he does use that bounce. And I think sometimes we saw last year is like some of his shots were just hitting the dirt a little early and bouncing over. And now they're hitting it right by the cage. And it's just it's coming so fast. It's a hard read to get as a goalie. And that's different than, maybe, some of these other guys who are shooting it high to high, like Perk. Every single one of his shots is coming overhand or that kind of 3/4, hitting the dirt and then skipping up. And then goalies they just can't get to it right now. So if he can continue, like you're saying, to evolve when defenses are stretching out and then find the extra man in the offense, it's just going to continue to let us grow and evolve.
And then after this podcast, I'd probably would put some money down on the fact that he's going to stick one stick side high overhand on someone too. So we'll be looking for that. And Miles too, playing off of that, when he gets one of those on the board too, that's only going to open up skip lanes for him, right? So adding to his vision, guys rushing out at him to get to his hands, and then the two slide getting to the guy on the crease, he'll be finding the pipes too. So it's definitely be exciting for those guys as they keep kind of working through as teams adjust to their 2-point shooting.
Definitely. And with that being said, I know obviously the big game of the weekend was the Archers Whipsnakes game. And, a lot of good stuff in that game. I thought it was the most exciting game of the tournament so far. And, for me, it's interesting because I played against that team. Obviously, I was on that team before. I played against those guys, Maryland guys. They're the only team I didn't beat in college. I think coming into this season, some people may have thought they weren't going to be as good. For whatever reason, they lost a lot of guys. I think that they've really taken a turn and are better than they were last year in a lot of ways. And I think, obviously we saw Rambo's performance today. Perhaps people were kind of like keeping him out of the conversation as, being the MVP of this tournament, whatever the case you want to be. And I think he's the type of player where he lets the game come to him so much so that, if he has a game where he just has 1-on-1, but he's still winning and they have 12 to 15 goals and other guys are stepping up, Zed's stepping up, Brad Smith, Haas, all their guys on offense. We'll talk more about them, but, it's no surprise that he comes out this game and, has 2-8, honestly. I think anyone that plays against him knows that when he wants to kind of kick it into that gear and needs to, he does, but he lets the game come to him and kind of plays off other people and lets people do what they need to do as well when the time's right. And to that point, I think for attackmen in this league who are dominant ball carrying attackmen, I think the most success you see are guys that are either quick, fleet of foot on that first step or guys that can play bully ball. Rambo, I know I've talked about it before. He can do a little bit of both. Like, he's kind of got a deceptive first step, but when push comes to shove, he puts his shoulder down, he creates separation. And that's what allows him to consistently draw slides and draw attention and get his hands free in areas in the field that he wants them to be free in. And if you're a guy that kind of, I feel like takes too much time with that, right? With this shot clock, it just puts your offense in a precarious situation. And I think you see it in terms of like, the guys that have an explosive first step, well, now they're not always trying to look to use their body, but they're always getting a great spots in the field right away. And then defense is drawing attention to them. And that's what makes the offenses kind of tick. So I think Rambo definitely utilizes his body better than anyone in the league from an attack perspective and makes defenses, feel it. And they have to respect that in terms of when he's coming top side. And that's what, is allowing him to really open up in terms of these assist opportunities. In addition to him having such great off-ball players and guys that know how to play the game the right way. And you can speak to more of that in terms of, the guys like Brad and Haas and Cheney and what they're doing, and Zed off-ball for Rambo when he does have the ball in his stick. Yeah,
and I'll add to that with Matt. I think today, really displayed a wide variety of his skill set. I think he had, he was working that low, wing island spot, gets that inside roll, finishes that tough, takes a huge hit, right? Bounces back up, displaying his toughness, gets a, really nice lefty question mark shot. I've always loved on the other side. He's always does a great job with that little double rollback to get his left hand because he can shoot that righty down the alley off of that island roll. And then to your point about using his physicality, he does such a good job of what I call, we used to call it in college, getting skinny and lowering that shoulder where he's keeping that bottom hand protected and keeping his eyes up to where he can make those feeds inside. He's looking through the defense. He does a great job of stepping away to create space. And then you can't really run out to his hands because he can use that leverage and get underneath, or he can run through the head of your stick and get top side. And so like today, if you remember the one I'm talking about where he's kind of posted up, like almost just standing there and like posted up, hesitating, slide comes and he just steps away and makes that feed. And then he's got, that through pass to Zed was really nice, stepping away. So he really displayed his ability to dish it everywhere. And then still, again, like you said, when the time is right, put his shoulder down and show his variety of dodging moves as well.
Yeah, and something, you hear him talk about it, and it's something that I think the most efficient offenses in the sport really do is just hit singles, right? It's kind of a running joke at this point with those guys, but like that's how you play lacrosse. So you're not looking for the home run pass. And if everyone on the offense is working to get singles, then those kind of home runs open themselves up. Stuff like the pass he had to Haas, right? Over time, it develops to the point where like that looks like it's a hard pass, no doubt, and a hard catch, but those are the things that start to open up after you've hit the singles and after you've drawn the attention and created that, that threat and that perceived threat as the ball carrier as time goes on. And I just think when you watch their offense, they're doing stuff with guys that are their role players, quote unquote, that just no other team is really doing right now. In terms of, a guy like Brad Smith, who's just consistently beating short sticks, getting top side and finishing with both hands. Zed is one of the best, shooters and scorers in that tournament right now. And I think in the league moving forward, he's obviously establishing himself in terms of that dominance. And then a guy like Haas, who just goes 4-2. It's like, what other midfielder has gone 4-2? Even last year, it's like, that's just such a quiet performance. But he's just consistently in the right spots, consistently, utilizing both hands and his rollback and the way that he sets up his moves. And it just allows for everyone to operate at such a high level because everyone knows what they're getting out of their guys and consistently doing off ball. And when they have the ball in their stick, looking to get it to the next guy when they don't have the advantage and allowing that guy to operate. It's a lot of fun to watch. And then on the flip side, you look at their defense and what they're able to do. It's just hard to beat a team who's winning at the clip that Joe Nardella is, that they're covering up mistakes when they do have them on the defensive side. And then when they don't get covered up, has Kyle Brunlar playing the way he is right now. And, it'll be interesting to see kind of how things shake out, but there's not a lot of margin for error when you play them, especially when, one of those guys like Rambo is feeling it that day.
Yeah, I think the support that, all the guys on the team, give the main couple, perceived stars, I think is pretty exceptional. Like touching back on Brad, as people will get to watch Brad more and more. Brad was a freshman when I was a senior. As he, has grown over the years, his versatility between playing attack, playing midfield, the two-handedness, and his size, right? He's 6'3", moves well. It really gives them another layer. And like when you have someone like Jay Carlson, playing his role extremely well, Maryland guy, and then also then being able to throw Brad down an attack like they were doing more of today, that's three extremely, hard to cover versatile weapons, right? And so, getting three guys to really, match that versatility, guys who can all move, guys who can all be physical, share the rock and score it too, I think is not an easy matchup. And then again, when you talk about, playing with guys like Hawes, Channing, like, two offensive coordinators in college that have been playing together for so long, right? These guys hold themselves and hold each other, to a high standard in terms of how they play the game. And, I'm sure that they hear about it, when it's, not the case. And so, the way they can work off each other and keep playing, high level lacrosse. And then when you get guys, like Lacasio in the mix, working without it, like guys are going to make those hard cuts off ball. Brad Smith, nice little setup cut, right? Because they know that guys are going to make the right plays, share it when it's supposed to be shared, or be aggressive when it's supposed to be aggressive. It's definitely exciting offense to watch.
Yeah, and I think kind of the sum of that is really just playing your role. And I think that that's something that kind of gets missed in lacrosse specifically, because I know we're a younger sport. Sometimes guys, like everyone wants to be the man, quote unquote. But at the end of the day, like your skill sets are your skill sets. The more that you like force yourself to be the player that you're trying to be, the less chance you're going to really be that player. You really want to figure out what you do well and the team that you're on, and really stick to that and grow and try to develop those skills that you can do more for your team. But, if you're on a team, with a guy like Rambo and you feel like you're more of a dominant ball carrier, where like if he's the dominant ball carrier, you want to get your touches like a guy like Brad Smith, but you also want to know what you can do to help Rambo when he has the ball on his stick. And I think that's what those guys do so well, is recognize what each other do well and then help each other when they don't have the ball on their stick, to make sure that they're maximizing their role and helping other guys maximize their roles. And I think that that's something people who are watching that offense could really learn and apply to their respective teams, both in college and the high school level, is just to know what your role is and sink your teeth into it and be the best version of yourself in it. That's what's going to get you to shine, right? If you're a great shooter, don't try to be the best Dodger on the team, right? Be the Dodger when you need to be it, but set yourself up to be that best shooter, and then you're going to look up and you're going to lead the team in goals. And I know that's not what we want guys to talk about, but sometimes everyone thinks it's about the stats, and that's why guys are doing what their role isn't supposed to be. But the more you don't do that and try to be something you're not, the less likely you're going to be able to get that shine. And we talk about egos and what guys want out of the game. Do what you do well, consistently do it, and the outcome will be there from what you want. And if you don't like that, get on the field like we talk about it, put the work in to kind of expand that and come back the next season so you have more of a role in the team.
Yeah, and I think, Jules, it touches on a couple good points, that anyone who's listening, for coaches or maybe coaches, that have less experience, and also for players. I think from a coach perspective, I think it shows the importance of finding those subtleties on the field that you can highlight for your players to reinforce, because at the end of the day, say you're a youth team, right? All the parents are going to go up to the kid that scores 4 goals, right? All the parents are going to go up to the kid that's doing the takeaway checks, right? Just because that's like what is most obvious. But then if you as a coach, especially of young players, can take that back and highlight the guy who set the good pick, highlight the guy who got the 2-handed ground ball, and then they know that that's appreciated, that's going to reinforce those kids making those right plays, and they will build into better lacrosse players from it. And then understanding their role, then when they do their roles really, really well, that's when you get recruited, right? That's when you get to college and you make an impact versus being a guy who can't play with the other 5 guys on their half of the field. We talk about it in our training sessions. And as we do more and more, together this coming year, what are you doing with the ball in your stick, right, is what's always easiest to talk about, right? Do we work on the dodging footwork? We work on the shooting mechanics, right? But we focus a lot on what do you do without the ball, right? If I'm adjacent to you, what are my options as an off-ball player? What's the only thing I can't do while my man Jules is dodging? I can't stand in that adjacent lane, right? I can't watch and be a spectator. Like, those are the kind of things that, players and coaches, especially, maybe newer to the game, or you're watching the PLL and what are your takeaways? Look for these things, right? These are the things that are going to make you better as a young coach or as a player. And I think, Jules, maybe you could touch on too, we talk about like every offseason we're finding things to get better at, but working on your strengths. Talk a little bit about when you think about dodging, like getting to know, like we said on our webinar this spring, understanding your body type and how that might impact how you're training and your moves and things like that.
Definitely. I think it's something that is missed a little bit. I think I had trouble with it growing up because the sport is, like I said, it's such a developing sport. In terms of coaching too, like I think some coaches are so new and are starting to realize that like you can't coach everyone the same way. Like as us as teachers now, and we're starting to really talk about footwork and what it means to be, a great dodger and what the work that it takes to get there. We have to acknowledge that my body type and my athleticism is different than Deemer's, right? It's just a fact. It's fine. But what can I do and take from Deemer to do well in my game? What can Deemer take from me? But ultimately, you're going to have a skill set that I don't have. And how can you maximize that skill set with your weight, your height, your ability to lower your shoulder, your ability to pop away, whatever you're doing well and what you can develop within your athleticism. And then how do you continue to work on the things that you don't do well, right? So I think for me and you, a great way to break it down, like you're probably a lot better than me at popping away and kind of using these like hesitation moves because you haven't had the natural speed, or maybe that's not been something you developed, that I'm quick to go to my first step. But now as I'm continuing to develop my game, if there's defensemen that are as quick as me, as fleet of foot, now I have to work on that stuff and work on those rocker and those second level moves that you're going to be more skilled at. And it's up to us as coaches to recognize what that player brings to the table, give him the tools to kind of develop those other things. If I'm a coach with you, it's like, how can I continue to improve your footwork, continue to improve your first step? And then as you're coaching me, how can you continue to make sure that I'm developing my 5-and-5 moves? Those moves when, I'm top side above the cage and I'm looking and I don't have the ability to kind of use my speed, right? Because sometimes we're tighter to the goal and I don't get that run. And I think that that's something, that we're definitely talking about between, us within, what we're doing in our training. And I think that's something coaches out there really need to start to acknowledge, is that we're not all, cut the same way, right? We're not all from the same cloth. We have different strengths, play to them, develop the weaknesses, but ultimately, at your peak athleticism, you're still going to be the different type of player than the next guy. And how can you continue to maximize what those things are that you bring to the table?
Yeah, it's such a good point. And I think, there's this fine balance between like the cookie cutter approach and having like your standards and your things that you want to get across. And like you have your kind of your simple truths, right? Of when it comes to shooting and our footwork and things like that. And then, I think the next level of that as a player and as a coach is that ability to self-assess and self-critique. And I was reading, what I was telling you about, I was reading that book, The Inner Game of Tennis, last week. And it's like, getting yourself to that point where you're observing reps and you're observing your gameplay, and it's not always good or bad and right or wrong. I think when players, come to train, something that, we're going to be touching on more and more is like, you're not training and you're not always like expecting critiques because it's so wrong, right? It's trying to like observe what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and then, what can be better, but also like it's not coming from a place of always deficiency, right? Or maybe it's situational, maybe it's time and place. And I think that's just like an interesting way to kind of keep thinking about, as players are working on their games, self-assessing and thinking about what they're doing. And then that way they're mindful of and aware of what their strengths are, what are some things that they can maybe improve on, but then also how does that really plug into their role? If you start working on a bunch of things because you just want to be the guy or you want to be the girl, that's not always going to be best use of your time. And I think it's cool to see how that comes together from a skill and training perspective into what we're seeing in terms of some of these great offenses and offensive play. And because that's where you have to be able to work with those 5 or 6 other players, depending on, men's or women's lacrosse. So I think that's exciting.
Totally. And to this last point, talk about a player that does his role that you're seeing for the first time this year in the PLL, Christian Mazzone. Obviously, I played with Christian in college, so I've known the type of player he is for a long time. I think he's definitely been under the radar for a lot of reasons, and I think that happens in college. We talk about what you really want to highlight, in lacrosse. It's, the big time step down shooters, with range, and it's the guys that have the best shake and, question mark moves. But talk about a guy that just does the right thing over and over again and helps his team. I think stats came out today. He's shooting 73%, and he's got
like 8 for 11 shooting.
8 for 11, and he just is in the right spots. He doesn't do anything fancy. He doesn't, over carry the ball. He's transition midfielder right now, kind of bringing the ball from defense to offense, gets those early offensive kind of stuff that he's gotten at Rutgers all the time, and then he's got short sticks in those low alleys that we talk about, and he just gets by them and then scores the ball, and it's just efficient. It's high to low, and he puts it in. It's 1 or 2 fakes. And he just continually moves off ball for, Grant Ament and other guys, because that's what he knows he can do right now in the role that he's in. And, he's the, leading midfield scorer in the league right now. And Does it matter that he's not scoring it, you know, because from these right to right shakes up top to smack and step down shots? Like, in my opinion, no. I'd rather have that, because you can find the other guys that can do that. But how many guys in that league and really in lacrosse are doing what he does consistently over and over again? And, you know, there's guys like them on the Whipsnakes, obviously. And that's why you have the best offenses, is because you have guys that sink their teeth into that. And he's a guy I'd love to see continue to get more touches on offense, because I haven't seen any defenseman stop him as a short stick D midi. And he's shooting 73% and he's getting those spots. Why not give him more opportunity, right?
Yeah, and I think, you know, going off of that, you know, think of when you're growing up as a young athlete, you know, you're going to see the stars. There's going to be people, you know, that you're looking up to, trying to be like, trying to play like. And I think as our sport grows, you know, it's going to be pivotal, you know, especially for, you know, us as players, you know, but also, you know, people who are really spreading the game, to continue to highlight those people to where, yeah, like I want to be like a Christian Mazzone. Like I want to go to a clinic, you know, this coming year. And I want, you know, me to be like, who's your favorite player? And it's not always necessarily the most jersey sales. It's someone who like plays the game this way for this reason. And this is why I love this guy's game. And this is why I want to be like that. That's when, you know, like that stuff is starting to sink in. And then that kid, you know, is going to have success in his career, because he sees like that, like truth of like playing lacrosse, like the right way, you know? And that's, I think, is going to be really exciting as our sport grows. It's like, you know, you think of like Klay Thompson, right? You think of like a Draymond Green, like just these guys that play these unique roles and styles and kind of, you know, push forward these positions. You know, obviously, like I would love to have Michael Sauer's footwork, you know what I mean? But I think it's like, that's when, as the sport keeps growing, you know, it's just those different types of players that people are going to grow up wanting to be like for those specific reasons. And it's going to be cool to see where it kind of pushes our sport.
Absolutely. And yeah, with that being said, I think, you know, I'm excited to watch these upcoming games. I think people are going to be surprised at some of the outcomes, because guys aren't just going to roll over and, you know, take a loss because they have lost a couple games prior to. Like that was a warm up. It's getting guys going, and now it's crunch time. Now the guys that, you know, are the big time players who make big time plays and win these kind of crunch time games, or I think you're going to see show out. And kind of the factor of, you know, health and you know, who's getting the most rest and who's taking care of their body the most is really going to come to play. And I think we're going to see some exciting games over the next week and a half.
Awesome. Well, I'm fired up. Great talking as always, Jules. We're going to be watching a game live on Tuesday. All right. Tuesday night. We'll let you know. Stay tuned for details. You know, please retweet. Please keep sharing the good word as we keep growing this podcast. We're excited to keep talking about lacrosse. Just a couple guys who love to talk shop. Thanks for tuning in to Class and Jules episode 3. Jules, I'll catch you next time.
Yes, sir. I'll catch you later.